Welcome to episode 151 of the Sports Geek Podcast. On this week's episode, we chat Origin with Jason Davis from the Queensland Maroons.
Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who introduced Twitter to Australia, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, I did introduce Twitter to Australia when they were looking to open offices here in Australia many years ago, back in 2012, when we ran the very successful Twitter Brekkie events in both Melbourne and Sydney. Had over 500 sports and entertainment people turn up. Maybe I should run them again as Twitter tries to rebrand and find its place in the sports and digital landscape. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. You're listening to the Sports Geek Podcast. Thank you very much for doing so. This is episode 151. If it's the first time you're listening to it, welcome. If you've been listening since the beginning, like people like Simon and Daniel and the like, thank you again for tuning in. Every time you listen, it allows me to continue to do this. You may be listening at sportsgeekhq.com, our website, or you might be doing it on your favourite podcast platform. You should know mine by now. It's Pocket Casts, but I won't begrudge you if you're listening via iTunes. I'm really excited, actually, around some of the developments that iTunes and Apple are doing in the podcasting space, because I think it will actually get more people listening to podcasts, and for me, that's a good thing. If at any point in time you're listening to this and you want to ask me a question, you can reach me via most social channels, at Sean Callanan on most channels, or you can use the old-fashioned way. And no, I'm not saying send me a fax because I don't have a fax number, but you can send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I'm always appreciative of hearing from people who are listeners, either via email or in the sports business Slack. As I mentioned in last week's episode, we have now passed 1,000 members in the Sports Biz Slack. And you can join that by just going to sportsgeekhq.com/Slack. And funnily enough, today's guest was organised and recruited via the Sports Business Slack. Jason Davis is the head of digital for the Queensland Rugby League and drives all the social, and him and his team drive all the social and digital for the Queensland Maroons. Queensland is the state representative team in Rugby League. They go up against, and we talk about it in the interview, they go up against the New South Wales Blues in a game, a series of 3 games every year. They are the pinnacle of the Rugby League calendar. We did discuss it previously on episode 81 with Matt Henry from the NRL, but it was really good to go behind the scenes and sort of go into what it's like on 3 of the biggest TV games of the year. What Jason and his team are trying to do to augment that experience, what they're trying to do on social and digital, because they have one of the biggest digital fan bases in Australia for a team as a state representative team. So here is my chat with Jason Davis from the Queensland Maroons. Very happy for this man to join me in a really busy period for his time of the year. Jason Davis, head of digital for Queensland Rugby League, right in the middle of the Origin season. Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be here.
So first of all, just for international listeners and those who don't quite understand, I guess, the prize jewel that is state of origin and Queensland versus New South Wales. Do you want to give us the explanation that you potentially give to people outside Australia that don't quite understand its importance?
Yeah, I probably, for Americans, there's the explanation that I give them that goes like this. It's basically a series of 3 Super Bowls, always between the same 2 teams. So imagine the 2 most fierce rivals in the NFL, and imagine for whatever reason they played a series of a best of 3 series every year. That's how big this game is to Australians.
And I guess probably from my point of view is that where it's a little bit different is that it's the All-Star game. if you take it in the American parlance, if it's the NBA All-Star Game or the Pro Bowl, that's sort of it's almost a hit and giggle, and no one cares about it, and everyone's worried about being injured. All of those things, Origin turns that on its head, where it's state versus state, mate versus mate. Queensland and New South Wales are the two heartlands for rugby league, and the best players fight tooth and nail to be on those squads. And then in the games themselves, they're the pinnacle of the sport. So I think that's
right.
That's the difference.
It's almost at times been bigger than international games. So Australia versus England or whatever, Australia New Zealand's a classic grudge match. It's at various times it's been perceived as the most elite form of the game above international.
Yeah, definitely. So your role as head of digital for Queensland Rugby League, this is obviously your prime time, but what does your overall role entail? 12 months throughout the year.
Okay, well, I guess internationally may sound like small beer, but we're the largest rugby league organisation in terms of participation and I guess geography that we cover. So Queensland, very large state in a very large country. We have 67,000 grassroots players from under sixes all the way up to the elite level that we've just been talking about. We have a second tier competition, so I guess it's for those in the US, again, it would be our equivalent of the college basketball scene versus the NBA. So it's the second highest form of the competition with 14 teams in it. That's a growing elite competition in its own right, and that goes has 14 teams and 13 teams in Queensland and one in Papua New Guinea. So technically an international competition, but all the way down to all those people just playing for fun in their local competitions and local clubs. Something like 98 different competitions, 495 different clubs throughout the state. But I guess a lot of the attention gets put on that State of Origin series, which is sort of an 8-week block in the middle of the year in our winter. It's a wide gamut of the game.
So very much like, if we're looking at the national organising bodies and the state organising bodies, you are everything rugby league in Queensland. So supporting all the grassroots, and supporting all the feeder teams and the feeder leagues up to the elite level, and the pinnacle being the Queensland Maroons, the state representative team that's part of State of Origin. So it's a lot like we spoken previously to Tennis Australia that have their big event being the Aussie Open, but for the rest of the year they're supporting grassroots, getting more kids playing tennis. You're doing the same and providing digital support for more kids and more people to be able to access rugby league in Queensland. Is your overall role for the whole year?
It is, yeah. Plus, of course, we're running that full 30-week competition in the middle of it, and we sort of skip over the NRL, which is, I guess, the highest, the elite club competition in the game, or certainly in this country, if not the world. So we skip over that. There are NRL teams in Queensland, but they are governed by the NRL, but we are a governing body for everything else in Queensland, that's right.
So I want to dive in on, these marquee events, 3 games, State of Origin. What are some of the things, because, the challenge for you and your team is you've got 3 games, you're not like a club. You're not in that club environment that has, 26 games and finals and those kind of things where you get to experiment different things. You've got those 3 events. In some years you've got 2 games, and in other years you've got one home game. Take us through, when does the planning process start for this Origin series that's currently underway, and then what are you trying to get out of those 3 games?
Yeah, it's a good question. a large chunk of our digital monetisation or our overall monetisation is around the State of Origin series. Obviously, wherever the eyeballs are, that's where the money comes from. So I guess my KPIs are year-round around engagement and revenue generation and what have you. So we get a large chunk of that, and video views, of course, on all different platforms. So we get a massive chunk of it through Origin. So if we want to hit those KPIs, we need to maximise, obviously, our peak time. Our planning will probably start, I guess, at the start of the new year. So for those who don't know, there's the rugby league season, although it's expanding, doesn't start in earnest till sort of March, I guess. Although there's another competition that's sprung up before that, but we're probably planning for Origin in January.
Yep.
And I guess looking back at what worked last year, what didn't, and just trying to improve, just trying to iterate every year and fold in the new, or the learnings and the adapt to the changes in certainly many social media platforms and the technology and what's happening with video and AR and VR and everything else.
So when do things start to kick in? Do you start sort of joining the conversation a little bit more early on in the season and profile, Queenslanders that are playing well in the NRL and those kind of things as the NRL season kicks along, or is it really around when those squads start getting announced and when you can actually get access to the players in those those training camps and the Origin camps that happen in the lead up to the games? When does it start sort of really becoming in earnest and you start doing that build? Because like you said, in January and February you can't be talking about Origin because the sports fan and even the true Queenslander, their attention is elsewhere, whether it be other sports or club football, the NRL. Like, when do you sort of start that conversation and start, I guess, twisting the dials to say we're going to push out more content?
Well, we try and about 12 months ago we developed, we stuck our little flag in the sand and said, okay, we're going to have a 12-month content calendar around State of Origin. How do we do that? It sounds counterintuitive. Well, we basically have a milestone calendar. So for 12 months of the year, and obviously in the low points in the off season, our Facebook and Instagram channels will tick over with, it's Wally Lewis's birthday, or on this day in 1984, such and such made their debut in State of Origin, so on and so on. So you'd be, I'm not sure anyone has done that out there. I'm sure there are plenty of people. You actually start to fill out the calendar fairly quickly when you think about debuts and birthdays and milestones and whatever else you can chuck into the mix. So you can pretty much come up with a piece of content every day if that's the way you want to go.
Yep.
Obviously, once games start getting played, Auckland Nines is the first sort of standalone, cut-down, modified version of rugby league that's played in, I think it's usually end of
January, February.
Yeah, end of January, early Feb. Obviously, any Queenslanders playing in those competitions, we can then hang our hat on those and follow them, even though they're playing for a different team. So that's sort of...
And so you're sort of in that space of either manufactured content around milestones or birthdays or special days in history from a Queensland point of view, to leveraging and curating content that's around, whether it be Auckland Nines or Channel or sort of the start of the NRL season. But it's a real, I've worked with different teams when you don't have access to the players, you are sort of, it's manufactured. When do you start, and I guess the other thing is you do something similar, with the Socceroos. They only come together at a certain time, at a certain place, and it's a short time frame, and they're obviously there to do football-related things in the same way that your Origin team is. How do you get into that window to say, hey, we need to do some content, we need to do some interview pieces with the guys in their Queensland strip? How do you plan that kind of piece around those training camps to say, yeah, we've got these content commitments where we need to fill out content over this 8-week period, and we need to sort of condense that access to the players because they do get pulled in multiple directions with traditional media, the training staff, all of that kind of thing. How does that sort of work in that training camp scenario?
Well, I think if you waited to only do your content production in when they come into training camp, you'd fall short. So we have, and you're right in saying that we don't have rights to call on the players outside of, I guess, that 10-week period in the middle of the year. But people can't quite believe this, but we pay the players to come in and do a media shoot, like a full day's media shoot in November, generally, depending on this year will be a bit different because there's a World Cup, but just before they go away on holidays, after the season, we pay them to come in and we shoot a ton of content. Obviously, I guess planning for the next year probably does start just before that in order to figure out what we're going to shoot. And then we use that to, I guess, augment the stuff that we do get once they come into camp. So for those who don't know, each of the 3 games is preceded by pretty much a 10-day training camp. And so that's when we do have access to the players, and we have I have a great relationship with the team and the staff, but we're mindful that they're there to win a game, and so you don't have unlimited access, but you do have quite good access. So then we obviously, then we shoot content series, we shoot funny stuff, we shoot whatever the content plan says. And as well as just the standard stuff, the headshots, the video headshots, the green screen stuff, and sponsor content that we need to tick off as part of their sponsorship. Obviously, sponsors require them to do various other shoots. And so then if that's the using the training camp, and you're right, you need so much content, it is hard to get it in that space. What does the strategy come down to, on game day? Because it's such a premium TV product. Nearly all of Queensland is watching. Yeah. All of New South Wales is watching, and you don't have to present. You don't have to present a lot of video and that because they're watching. So, from a social digital point of view, what are you looking to do in the digital space to enhance that coverage and to, I guess, deepen the ties with Queensland fans that you're trying to do on a game day? So we're trying to we hang our hat on reactive content from the game. So the media rights are fairly restricted here, so we can't use game footage at this point in time. Next year will be slightly different as the media rights landscape changes a bit. But at the moment, we can't use any game footage in our reactive content. So what we're really trying to do is, even for a fan at the game or at home watching on TV, we want to have a fresh bit of content out within about 90 seconds of whatever the play is that's been made. So by the time you jump off the couch, high-five your mate, have a sip of your beer and sit back down again, you can look at your phone and there's a new fresh bit of content that has pulled, an image of whatever that moment was. Take us through that process, because I discussed a little bit of this with Matt Henry on an earlier podcast where we stuff around the celebrities and getting them saying, hey, we support, I'm behind the Maroons and that kind of thing. Take us through the process of you and your team. You're watching the game, Cam Smith balks someone and scores a try, or he does an offload and someone else scores. What's the process in your team for doing that turnaround in that 90 seconds? Okay, so a long time before we get to that point, we've done a series of templates, and they're over a period of time. We haven't quite perfected it, but we're getting close. So basically, we'll have Photoshop templates, we'll have After Effects templates, we'll have all sorts of animations waiting there basically to drop a game image into the back of.
Yep.
And change text on the fly, basically. So it'll be, it'll be short, sharp. I mean, the NFL, the NBA are very good at this, and they probably lead the world. But if it wouldn't be something as boring as try time, but it'd be something like a big banner headline that we've got probably 3 or 4 guys in the tunnel or just off the field who are getting card swaps off the snappers live.
Yep.
And so basically we'll be there on our laptops and put an image quickly through Lightroom and drag that into the template and a bit of a tweak and publish, and away we go. As I say, we aim to have things turned around in 90 seconds. That stuff, obviously, it attracts a hell of a lot of eyeballs, so it can... It is sometimes branded, but sometimes branded after the fact. Just depends on the deal. So that obviously that's all pre-built into those templates.
And so it is all in that preparation that you might have all of these different templates, and you might have scenarios that just don't come up. You don't get a template used because that match event or that scenario didn't happen, but the planning has to be there, and those templates have to be there. Otherwise, you can't get that 90-second turnaround.
That's right. The guys are getting pretty good at it. So they come up with templates that are sort of for, I guess, the shape of an image of a try is generally always a horizontal kind of shape. Someone diving or whatever. There's some, a shape of guys going up to grab the ball, leaping in the air is, usually a portrait sort of style shot. So they try and cover as many kind of permutations as they can. But it's all about quickly coming up with a tagline and whacking it in. And, as you say, it's all about the preparation. So that you do have enough different templates that suit most occasions. We make animated try cards these days. We make on those video shoots we've and you would have seen them on big screens around the game, and the kind of thing where the player is introduced, number 5, Davis,
yep.
And they're there on obviously etched out of a green screen, folding their arms and that kind of thing. So we have that kind of stuff on try cards. Best laid plans in game 1 of this series. Queensland unfortunately only scored 1 try, so my poor designers did 17 different try cards, only got to use one once. So
yes.
We say that that's a jinx, and we've told them not to do it. But of course, as soon as you don't make a version for everyone, then that person's guaranteed to score. So anyway, so it's all about the preparation.
And so, is there also, checks and balances in there? In that, some before the publish button gets hit, someone is following a checklist to make sure the name's right, make sure the score's right, make sure the picture image is right, make sure the copy that's submitting it right.
Yeah. So I'll be in the tunnel with the guys, and I'll get. I guess the buck stops with me, so I'll have the final say. We have done it remotely before, but just the connectivity around big stadiums full of people is generally diabolical. So we've found that being physically there on site is the way to go. Mm-hmm. But I'm there with the guys. So
because it's very much like a professional kitchen where you've got all the people producing the different ingredients, and effectively comes up to the pass for you, and you sign it off, and it hits.
That's right.
It's a social.
It's a pressure cooker situation, because we do put a clock on it, and anyone who knows about reactive content knows that half-life of reactive content is very, very, very short. So if you take an extra minute to turn something around, you are going to find that your numbers are down overall if that continues to happen.
And you're competing with the media broadcasters, whether it be Channel 9 or other media outlets that are trying to push out that same or similar content.
That's right.
That's the game, isn't it?
The game is speed, and the game is quality at speed. And I reckon we do pretty well. But there's always there's always room for improvement, and some of the challenge is that the platforms change over time. So now the only chronological social media platform is Instagram Stories for us. Everything else is, I guess, Twitter. The volume just kills you, but Instagram Stories is really our only opportunity to do a chronological sort of not day in the life, but a series of events.
Yep.
Whereas everything else is algorithmic, so you can't get the right order. So we've had to react to that and do a lot more Instagram story content. We now do our team list as a horizontal strip of a continuous, photo gallery that joins one player to the next.
So the bit that I'm interested in, and you mentioned Instagram Stories, which, it got that idea from a little app called Snapchat, because you're right,
Yep.
It's those two, that format is the only one that tells stories in the way that we've traditionally watched them. No one watches Star Wars, out of order, right? They don't algorithmically say, you're going to start with this bit scene because it's the greatest scene and it's the one you've seen. And so which of the platforms do you find to be the most, it sounds a bit silly, react the most to reactive content? Because for mine, are people opening up Insta Story, quickly after a try or after a big highlight to see it, or are you seeing, and again, where you might not have the opportunity to dive into the stats, or are people watching it? Because I find Instagram Stories and Snapchat Stories are a great sort of recap, and so so the speed of, if you're saying, hey, we've got to get this out, and you're a little bit Gordon Ramsay in your line there to say push, 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 whereas there's platforms like Twitter has to be out first because that's how Twitter works, whereas the Instagram Story can be the last one done because the people are going to consume it afterwards. You've won the game, they want to see the whole story and get the full recap. Is there platforms that are more, like I said, more reactive to reactive content?
Well, we're a bit of an interesting entity in that our Facebook audience is so massive.
Yep.
We're the number one, got the largest Facebook audience in Australia of any Australian team in any sport, which is a nice little factoid.
So Neil, getting close to the million fan mark.
That's right, 930,000 or thereabouts. So obviously, your premium content you're going to push to your premium audience.
Yep.
Having said that, on the flip side is Facebook are turning the screws on your free reach in order to try and get everyone to pay. So there's that balancing act. But we consistently I think I've got some stats, but out of game one, we millions and millions of.
But it is very much playing to the algorithms. I guess. What Facebook is pushing out. People want live, they want access when people are talking about it, and you're the premium, brand for that topic, then yes, it makes sense to put that, there's a try. Queensland fans have been conditioned to, well, we scored a try, I need to share it so my New South Wales mates see that we just scored a try. So Facebook is becoming more live and more reactive, which, 4 or 5 years ago, that would have been Twitter's domain.
That's right.
So it is interesting, but I was just more on the point of the the Insta Story, Snapchat stuff on whether they're checking in, watching it. I feel it's more of it's half time. What did the Queensland Maroons put up on Insta Stories at half time, and see what it is?
and we do specific half and full time content as well. So that's a slightly different format as well. So we try and capture those eyeballs as well as. And then I guess that's known. They're known milestones that you're always are going to happen. So you can kind of, drop in a relevant background image and change the score and write some text that says, "Come on, we need to come back in the second half," or "We're miles ahead," or whatever the case may be.
And are you seeing what I'm hearing from a lot of different clubs that are sort of dabbling and playing with Insta Stories, that it's really effective in driving more traffic than most people expected? If you do, here's the team list, or here's the longer video swipe up to watch or do it. Are you seeing that?
Yes,
because it's very counter to Insta, because for the normal feed, no one ever leaves. they just keep swiping and double tapping. Whereas Insta Stories is completely, because they're really two separate products mashed into one. But the Insta Stories is actually driving a lot of traffic for a lot of brands.
And really, really quite easy and quite attractive to monetize, because I mean you can put a slide in between the other stuff that has is linking to whatever website that the sponsor or a partner wants you to, and away you go. So it's very. I think the days of it all being a bit of a free-for-all will be numbered, and the screws will turn as they always do. But yeah, that's our largest or our fastest growth on any social platform by a fair margin.
Oh, I think we just saw recently that Facebook is sort of putting its policies out around, I guess, branded content, more targeting the influencer types and making sure that it's well disclosed. You're right. Facebook knows that if people are making money out of their platforms, they will make sure that Facebook gets some money out of those platforms, and which is what their business model is. So you can't begrudge them that. The other thing, aside from game day and the reactive content piece, because I still think it's super relevant and makes that second screen experience. For mine, it's the digital face paint. You want to make sure you're giving content to your fans to share, and that's why reactive is so good. The other thing you've done in this Origin series is the Maroon Festival, and sort of moved into the digital support of event activation and the things around that. What were some of the things you looked to do around the festival from a digital point of view? I guess. Overall, the main strategy around the festival itself it sounds cynical, but it's not really cynical, is to create a rights-free environment to use, that we own, to use for whatever purposes that we want. So obviously the rights around large football matches and TV deals and digital deals are heavily locked down and already monetized, but if we create new stuff, then it's our new stuff, and we can then use it to drive grassroots, young kids signing up playing rugby league, or to diversify our fan base. People think that rugby league's mainly followed by, males of between 20 and 40, and that's not really the case, but it does skew a bit that way. But we wanted to have a rugby league conversation, but not hardcore rugby league, but I guess sport generally and Queensland generally, so we can actually not convert fans, but just touch and engage with fans who like go to events, like to go to community events. And the thing is, it just broadens the whole entertainment package. That yes, you are going there for super important game, but you see the same things happening. The activations and the festival around the Super Bowl. The NRL and the AFL do something similar around their grand final, and it's now just what fans expect from big events. So it makes sense that Origin does something similar. Was there anything in particular you did from a digital point of view around some of that events and experiential, which is a real hot term in marketing? Did you do anything in that space?
We did. We partnered with a developer up here to build our Maroon Festival app, and a large sort of driver of that was what we called a Legends Walk. So it was an AR, I guess, virtual treasure hunt of, I don't know if people who live in Australia would know there's a Wally Lewis statue of a very famous rugby league player at the front of the largest largest stadium in Brisbane. Yep. Known as the King locally. We thought, well, he's a fantastic, I guess, statesman or example of players, but there's all these former players, many of whom are legends. So we thought we'd use this app to create similar statues of these very famous players, and a series of them where you basically download the app and you scan markers on the ground, and you can
So effectively see these virtual statues.
Virtual statues that are sort of, real size or slightly larger, and then they can take a photo with their favourite player and share it online and have and learn a bit as well about, people who watch the game now may not know where Origin came from and who Arthur Beetson was and why this whole concept, this grudge match, where it all started. And so we try to slide a bit of sly education in there as well, which I think is probably the best way to handle education.
Yes, the old edutainment, I think is the term you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so what was the adoption? What were some of the things? Because it's all releasing you're releasing an app and using all new tech. From a digital point of view, you go, yeah, and the geeksness go, yeah, that's cool. But then from a general acceptance and the punters out there, getting people to download a new app and use new tech is a really big hurdle.
It is hard.
What did you learn about that? Like, what were some of the lessons you learned around promoting an app just for the festival and those kind of things?
It helped. The whole Pokemon Go kind of craze in the recent past helped people understand kind of what AR was, and it's not too dissimilar to that. What we did learn was we want next time to take the experience from one person on one small screen, seeing something cool, to actually probably have people at that activation with a device that is a known quantity and is, a recent sort of a fairly highly spec device to get a good result, but also share that or project that onto a screen nearby, so people kind of a large screen that I guess shows what the content is on the small screen would go a long way to helping people kind of get it, and then be motivated to sort of come along and have a crack. People were sort of taking photos of, because obviously with AR you need some sort of marker, physical, real markers, so people know what, there's something there to do, and so that people were taking photos with these real markers with, they had almost like a photo of the player and a stats board and stuff. They weren't really a lot of them didn't cotton on sort of very easily.
So you've just done done a small sign that says, click use the app, you'll unlock this, and people are just taking photos in front of a poster.
Yeah, well, sort of. Yeah, it was a large kind of.
And I think that's one of the lessons. I think the guys at Levi Stadium in San Francisco, like, they rolled out a stadium app and it's superbly spec'd out tech stadium. Even now, 2 years in, they've still got what they call a geek squad, people walking around telling people how to use the app.
Yeah.
2 years in, and so sometimes, even though I put my hand up, I use Pokemon Go, but then I think I showed 20 people how to use it.
Exactly.
Like, you still need those sort of ambassadors to do it, and so whether it's video content that you create, that you prime your audience to say, if you're coming along to the festival, download the app. This is what you can do. You can collect all the legends, and it's that kind of piece that you now know that it's like the getting people to download an app is super hard these days, because people just don't do it that often.
We had a lot of, media partners who we tried to leverage as much as we could to do that, radio and TV. The other thing, of course, as any app developer knows, that it's a bit of a balancing act between the size, especially in AR, the size of the content or the quality of the content versus the size of the app. We tried to get as many people to download the app before they got to site, because it was a very large app, because it had 16. We wanted the experience to be fairly high quality, but that brings with it a very large app. So as much as we smash that message out, people just will not. I guess their priority is not your stuff; it's their lives, exactly. And they won't download your app before they get there, no matter what you do. Or a certain percentage will, but a lot of them won't. So you better be ready for that. So we we boosted the Wi-Fi, and we had, we, for want of a better term, augmented the Wi-Fi experience as well. So that helped mitigate that. But yeah, it's a constant balancing act.
I think it is. It is a good lesson that people sometimes lean into, and we've got to keep doing these new things so it becomes a bit more mainstream. But sometimes, we do get in our own world going, oh, it's an app. Yeah, cool, this app will work. We need to download it. And then you need to step back and go, yeah, what are the logistics? Oh, yeah, it is an 800 meg app. Oh, what if they don't download it? How do we go about doing it? Those kind of things, the boring logistics become, super important to success. So,
yeah, that's right.
And the thing is,
we've all learned hard lessons. One little sort of, I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
has killed a whole project.
So yeah, so it's good, and again, then it's just a matter of, what tweak that might be. Next year, obviously, the fact that you've got people downloaded the first version, then you can update the version for the following year. That's always a good lesson, and yeah, I think things like Pokemon Go help things go mainstream. But yeah, and sometimes the best technology is having someone standing next to the poster say, "Don't take a photo. Try this version. Look at this."
Yeah, look at this. Let me give you a hand. Yeah, the next iteration hopefully will be, there'll be no physical markers. It'll be GPS plot points, and the actual AR content will be served from a different server, so you can get that quick download. But then we're going to have the infrastructure to cram that content quickly into people's phones on site. So that'll be another challenge in itself.
But the good thing is that you are, it is something built for, again, going back to, rightly or wrongly, what people think a league fan, an Origin fan might be. You're like, well, we're building this for the younger fan, potentially kids that want to have fun, be in a bit of the edutainment space, the family that's coming to the game and they want to see a few things, have some fun. Like it's not directly to your whole, your standard market, and you're not expecting every 80,000 people that are coming there to do it. You're just doing it for this, to make the event, fun for that group.
That's right. And if you build, or if you plan to have a product for a period of time, then your return on investment's a bit more of a long term strategy. So if year one downloads are slightly off the mark, then it's not the end of the world. You can iterate, and that's the whole point of trying new things. And I think it's even just the process of doing that is, I don't know, it speaks to our audience to say that we are trying new things. We're not just going to do the same old, expect the unexpected kind of thing. And that's what's exciting about sport, and so that's what I want to be exciting about our organisation as well.
Last thing I want to talking about new tech and sort of integrating it and what you're trying to do. You've been doing a little bit more and more around drone footage. There's a bit of it's the new toy, it's really shiny, but then how much do you do? Because you can fall in love with the tech and potentially. Go away from the stuff that works. Because sometimes fans just want to watch the boys go through the captain's run, and see them up close just with the standard camera. How do you balance that? Because I'm sure you've got guys in your team that love their toys, and a lot of listeners are the same. They go, we want to do it with all these new fangled toys. How do you balance? You're spending a couple of $1,000s on a drone, and then eventually it goes, we use 15 seconds. How do you balance that?
It's a good question. Funnily enough, the drone is we're not producing a lot of, client-facing or fan content. We're actually producing a lot of video footage for analysis for the team itself. So the ROI is that's it right in a nutshell. And if that wins us games, then that's all the ROI I'll ever need.
So your team partly services, I guess the operations, the coaching side.
Partly does, yeah. I mean, and sports tech and analysis kind of stuff we look after. It's not, we don't do a massive amount of it, but we do obviously do it around our premium, our elite competition. So basically we fly the drone to analyse defensive technique and defensive patterns, and for the coaching staff to review that footage in contact sessions, so contact training sessions, and so they can coach the guys to get defensively mainly as tight as they possibly can, and to watch, I guess, how players react to certain situations in defence.
Yeah, so that's good. So then at least your operators, are getting, they're getting reps, they're getting the hours in the air, so they know how to drive the drone and get the appropriate footage. So then when you flip it over to the fan engagement space and you say, I want a good drone shot of the festival, because you're not doing anything game day. That's the purvey of the TV rights broadcaster. But if you want that, that long pan shot of, hey, look how cool the festival looks. Yeah, your drone operators can go, yep, that's no worries, and you're not saying, okay, this is the first big flight you've ever done. Just capture it perfectly.
Try not to crash it into the crowd. Yeah, that's right. Certainly once you've mastered a fast moving ball, staying the right distance away from a fast moving team on a field, and guys that kick the ball and like to target the drone a little bit as well, you get pretty slick on the old control. So after that, nice panning shots aren't a problem whatsoever. Yeah,
and then occasionally, if they do try to hit the drone, you go, oh, well, it costs us a drone, but it's going to be a terrific bit of viral footage that I can put up on Facebook. So
that's right, that's another 50 million views. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
So just to wrap up with the Sports Geek Closing 5, do you remember the first sports event that you ever attended?
Oh, jeez. I can remember an early one that I attended, and it was one-day cricket at the MCG back when, well, it's still massive, but I think it had just sort of expanded. I think it might have been the 96.
Oh, the World Cup?
The World Cup Pakistan, I think. And I was way up in the nosebleeds. That was pretty special.
And as a twist on that, do you remember your first Origin game that you attended?
I never attended. I reckon I attended one or two before I started working here, because I just could never afford it, to be honest. Yeah. It was a very, very big treat to get along to go.
Yep.
And yeah, I reckon I attended one at ANZ Stadium once, and it was all a bit of a blur now. So football games tend to blur a bit for me now.
They do. I think I went to one of the ones that was in Etihad Stadium, one of the first ones that was at Etihad Stadium from an Origin point of view, and I guess that again highlights how big it was when Queensland and New South Wales come down to another state and to play a game of Victoria, because we still follow it with obviously the Melbourne Storm, part of the NRL, and a lot of Victorians end up barracking for Queensland, because so many of the stars for the Melbourne Storm have been stars for the Queensland Maroons for so long.
That's right, they're our unofficial fourth team. And the next 2 years, there's a game in Melbourne and a game in Perth, believe it or not. So
yes.
The brand has pretty substantial power, and people pay good money to host it further afield. And because of the stadium redevelopments, the opportunities is there.
Yep. What about what's your favourite or your go-to food at a sports event?
Oh, look, I love a pie, I've got to say. A nice rat coffin. I love a rat coffin.
I've never heard that term, a rat coffin. For our American and European listeners, that must make meat pies sound absolutely delicious. I like meat pies, but I've never called them a rat coffin. But
a friend of mine told me that one, and it stays with you.
It does now.
I think it's a Victorian term, but I happy to be corrected on that.
I've never heard it, but that's all right. I will now pass it on. I'm happy to pass on those kind of terms.
Take that.
What's the first app you open in the morning?
Unfortunately, it's Airmail, my mail app. We have a bit of a running thing in the office where who's snowed under with the most emails, and I've currently got. I'm just looking at my phone here. 1,452 unread emails. So I'm the leader in that one. I get CC'd in on everything anyone ever does in the entire organisation. So
again, I don't know if because all of my emails on Google Apps, I use a product called Sanebox.
Oh yeah,
which is a terrific product because it effectively picks out their newsletters, their bulk notifications, their spam, and then over time it starts learning that these people are important to me. Make sure they hit my inbox. These people are sort of important. They go into the later box, and I pretty much just stay in those two inboxes. So it does mean I don't read a lot of the newsletters, and I sort of pick and choose which ones I want to read. But for the most part, the important stuff actually gets through to the inbox.
Okay, I might have a look at that.
So if it's a Google add-on product to the apps product, Sanebox, it's well worth it. Like it literally sends me an email once a week.
I've tried a few, and I'm happy to keep looking for that holy grail of the perfect email client.
Yeah. The other one is inbox zero is overrated. Just select them all and delete all of them.
Yeah,
and then you find out what's really important.
That would be empowering, wouldn't it?
What about? Is there anyone that you think the Sports Geek Podcast listeners should follow? Whether they be someone you follow on Twitter or someone's work that you follow a lot of?
Oh, you've already mentioned Matt Henry, so he's a former colleague of mine. So I'm sure, he's worth a look.
You can give Matt a plug. I'm more than happy to
give Matt a plug.
Give Matt another plug.
Yeah. Hopefully he'll do the same one day.
Yes, exactly.
I like to follow non-sporting digital people, actually, just for a bit of light relief.
Oh, no, I completely agree with that. Like, you can learn so much from how, musicians and music promoters sell out or I'm doing a lot of stuff in the book publishing space and seeing how they're doing it. One of my favourite phrases, steal with pride. So if they're doing it well, there's a way that you can bring it to your market. So, highly recommend that. Lastly, what is your social media platform would be your MVP? And you can either answer this with your Queensland Maroons hat on, and then if you want, you can also answer it from a personal point of view. But if you had to pick a platform that's the most valuable player for you, what would it be?
Oh, it's easily Facebook for us.
Yep.
I'm just looking at stats from State of Origin game, 7.1 million reach and 453,000 interactions, blah, 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 blah. So, but we have a bit of a multi-channel approach, and obviously it's hard to quickly grow an audience of that size, especially in a country of 23 million or so. So we've got...
But that's a pretty good number considering just to give context to international listeners, you're approaching 1 million fans now. Admittedly, they're not all in Australia, but there's only 16 million people in Australia on Facebook. So, even if we take the broad numbers, one in every, you pretty much got 5% of the country, if not more. So, kudos for that. Do you have a personal social media platform that's your go-to?
Oh, look, I'm loving Instagram at the moment. I mean, I know it's not the
it's often nominated by a lot of people because we are so on the go all the time, consuming so much content in the 9 to 5 with air quotes because we all work longer than 9 to 5. A lot of people nominate Instagram as their personal one because they just get to switch off and double tap pretty things.
I know. Well, it's simplicity, isn't it?
Yeah.
I really like. You certainly don't get it with Facebook, and even with the story sort of jammed up the top there, it still kept the experience really fairly light. And as you say, sometimes you just need a bit of lightness in your life rather than hairy detail and analytics side of things. So yeah, that's somehow you can feel the waves on that white Jamaican beach that you're looking at or whatever. You just kind of drift away.
Yeah. Just to finish off, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you on the internet if there's a particular platform that they can connect with you?
LinkedIn, I'm probably fairly active and got reasonable presence on LinkedIn, so look for Jason Davis. QRL.
Yes, I will link to both the QRL and the Queensland Maroons and the social channels. Check them out. We are recording this in the midst of the series, so you'll by the time you listen to this, a couple of games will be done, and there'll be another game to come. And also, you can send Jace a message if you are in the Sports Biz Slack. You've just gone and secured Jace, JASE. Makes it very easy for people to find you on the Sports Biz Slack. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and best of luck for the Origin series this year.
Thank you, Sean. Go the Maroons.
Sign up for Sports Geek News at sportsgeekhq.com/sign up now.
Thanks again to Jason Davis, or at Jace. As I mentioned, Jace is in the Sports Biz Slack. More than happy for you to ask him a question, how it went. This podcast was recorded before Game 2, and I'm recording this intro, outro after Game 2. So I can tell you, after Game 2, the series is now tied. A big win for Queensland in enemy territory. They won the game at ANZ Stadium by 2 points, with Queensland legend Jonathan Thurston kicking to put them up by 2 points, kicking the extra points to give them the win. So it goes to the decider. July 12 will be Game 3. It will be in Queensland at some corp. So follow the hashtag Origin and follow the Queensland Maroons on all the socials. All the links will be in the show notes, sportsgeekhq.com/150. To see all the content, that reactive content that Jace was talking about, and also the different content they got coming out of training camp in the lead up, because it will be a massive lead up for a deciding match. So thanks again for Jace taking the time during Origin season, because I know it is a busy time. But yeah, if you've got any questions for him, send him a message in the Sports Biz Slack or connect with him on LinkedIn. The links to connect with Jason will be in the show notes. Lastly, just give you an update on Sports Geek campaigns. You can go to sportsgeekcampaigns.com to register your interest. Really working well in refining the product and how it works with some current clients. If you haven't heard of Sports Geek campaigns before, one good thing would be to go watch and listen to my download my Money in Sport keynote from last year, which you can do that by going to sportsgeekhq.com/moneyinsport, where I really detailed, I guess, the first iteration of Sports Geek campaigns, where we helped one of our clients completely rebuild a campaign pitch deck for a sponsor, pitch that work against their current digital agency, and won that work in-house. So the Sports Geek campaigns is very much that. It's a sponsorship campaign development service as required, software as a service. So we'll work with you, with your commercial teams, your partnership teams, to build those campaign pitches. We'll work with your digital team to integrate those campaigns, so they're not just sent down the hill and ask your social team and your digital team to post it. We also work on the valuation piece, so the sponsor realises why they're paying what they're paying. And the good thing is, you go in with fixed costs. The different types of campaigns that we have, whether it be a bracket challenge or a tug of war vote or a user generated content campaign. You know what those costs are. And so as long as you're charging your sponsors above those costs, and again, that's where the Sports Geek valuation kicks in. Every time you sell them, you're making money because those costs are covered. So we're seeing between 10 and 25 $1,000 being made on every single campaign because they've been valued appropriately and integrated with other content that's being developed by the team. So not only are you making money, but you're also showing the returns for the content that you're developing. So you're not in that makeup mode, which some of you may be in near the end of the season of, we've got to show the sponsor that we've delivered this value. This is where this fits, where you can say, hey, here's the campaign, that's the pillar of the sponsorship that will drive brand awareness, attract sales leads if that's what they're looking for. Then also you can integrate all the other content pieces to show where that value lies. And so you're not just scrambling at the end and doing make goods and those kind of things. And it doesn't require any resources by you. So it just requires that initial setup of your partnership and commercial team selling the concept and selling that as a product to your sponsors. And then there's no resourcing required. My team and the work that we're doing with Tradable Bits and the partnership that we've got, we'll develop all the campaigns. We'll run all the ads to make sure you get the result with the appropriate demographics in Facebook. We'll do all the reporting. We'll deliver back all the data, and all you've got to do is make sure the sponsor is happy and deliver them the report at the end. So that's the goal. That's the goal of Sports Geek campaigns, to sort of take away some of that pain for the commercial teams that are lacking a little bit in how to sell digital, and also to fix potentially the problems between the commercial team and the digital team where there's a bit of a mismatch and they're not really utilising and correctly valuing the content being produced by the digital team. So if you do have interest in that, I will be out and about, both pitching it to and talking to both the partners on the side of the sponsor side, but then also with the commercial teams to say this is how it can be sold. We'll be setting up things like digital upfronts for clubs to be able to them to showcase all the different types of campaigns and integrated concepts that they can do. And effectively, you can get some of your partners into a little bit of a bidding war to say, oh yeah, I want that. And the good thing about doing it in this way, you're not committed to building out these big content pieces that have a lot of heavy costs in them until you actually get someone to buy them. So it sort of mitigates that risk of we don't have the budget to do that big project, and it definitely gives your commercial team something to sell. And what I've discussed with people like Jen Van Dyke and Joe Gottfried in previous episodes, once you've defined something and given it to the commercial team and said, sell this is what it is, this is what it delivers, it's far easier than just saying, hey guys, we've got digital properties and assets and big reach, figure out what you can get. So if you send me an email, Sean at SportsGeekHQ, or go to sportsgeekcampaigns.com to fill it out. Really excited to be working with Tradable Bits on this as a project and as an offering to the market, because I know it can work, and the main thing is to make sure your sponsor's happy. Happy sponsors always come back. So until next episode, stay tuned for the sounds of the games. I got the sounds of the game back for this episode. Mr. Blair Hughes, good friend of mine, never misses a big event. He was at game 2, and of course Blair, the king of fan engagement, had his phone out to capture that game-winning try from the stand. So thank you, Blair, for capturing that. And again, if you're at a game, capturing a big moment, got the roar of the crowd, please send me a link, and DJ Joel will put it at the end of the podcast. So stay tuned for that. But until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and you've been listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.
Like the Sports Geek Podcast? Find us on Facebook.com/SportsGeek. Check out which teams work with Sports Geek at SportsGeekHQ.com/clients. Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to SportsGeekHQ.com/iTunes. Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.